This video will be specifically about classic perfumes. So this is a genre of perfumes that is for somebody who loves scents that have got a bit of history and they just smell timeless. You can wear them at any age, you can wear them throughout your life. These are just works of art, but they have a very specific scent profile in my opinion. So if you're into this, this is a perfect video for you. So it was quite interesting for this video because when I thought about classic perfumes, there's a few brands that came to mind and quite a few perfumes from each of them. So it's a very specific thing. To me, one of those brands is of course Chanel. This is like the first brand that I think about, and I love classic Chanel perfumes. Some of my favorites that I recommend to you because it can be a bit overwhelming would be this one, the Chanel Coco Mademoiselle Intense in particular. The dry down is to die for. It's better in my opinion than the Eau de Toilette because the dry down, the vanilla, the spicy vanilla that you get at the end of this fragrance hours later after applying is absolutely insane. And it's a compliment getting fragrance. Everybody wears this, but it's still classic. It's such a good fragrance. Whenever I wear this, I get crazy compliments at the dentist, at the eye doctor's office. I don't know why I choose to wear this. Maybe I do actually because I want to be very likable. I want to have a likable scent, but I often seem to wear it to those sort of appointments and I always get compliments. It's just one of those scents that is classic and youthful at the same time, so it's nice, a bridge in between. I also love the cocoa, the ambery juice, the Chanel one. To me, that one is a bit more grown up, but I still love it. It's a bit more ambery, it's a bit more spicy, it's less sweet, it's got more of this put together mature vibe, but I love it. It's still not as mature smelling as number 5, for example. It's like a nice in between and it's super classic. To me, that fragrance is also totally worth the money and attention for somebody who wants a classic lady perfume. Another one, if you want to go for number 5, if you love it, then go for it. But to me, number 5 is of course a classic fragrance, but there is other one from the line that I do recommend for everybody in general. It's still classic, but it's got that modern twist, and it's a number 5 L'Eau. This fragrance to me, it still has got this, number 5 DNA, this soapy, traditional, clean smell, just beautiful, but it's a bit more fresh and sparkling, which makes it a bit more youthful, a bit more modern and uplifting. It's just easier to wear all year round compared to number 5, so I would really recommend you that one as well. And from the exclusive line, I know there's quite a few Chanel fragrances, but really, like, who can go more classic than Chanel? One of my favorites is Coromandel from Chanel. This fragrance, the patchouli in this is absolutely phenomenal, and I personally love patchouli, and I bet if you're watching this video and you love classic fragrances, then you probably love patchouli as well. This is a gourmand, a sweet gourmand, but it's not a modern sweet gourmand. It doesn't go to that edible cookie dessert sort of a way. It's nice and refined and earthy, sweet fragrance. It's chocolatey, it's got amazing earthiness, and I mean the dry down of the scent trail is so divine, classic. I also love the new one that they released. It's Lion, so lion, and that one is quite similar to Coromandel, and I bet if you like Coromandel, then you would love Lion as well. So if you maybe are looking for something a bit different, or you've finished your bottle of Coromandel, I would say that Lion is really, really good and very similar in a DNA and vibe, very classic, and this is a perfect fragrance for now, especially winter. this lasts and lasts, and the dry down, as I've said, is absolutely phenomenal. The patchouli, ooh. Next brand that I think about when I think of classic fragrances is of course Guerlain, and a lot of these perfumes are classically French houses, and I love classic fragrances, but I also want them to stand on their own next to modern fragrances. So I don't want them to literally just be very classic to the point of I will smell like a grandma. It's just not my vibe. If it's yours, then go for it. It's just not my vibe. So these fragrances, I would say, are nice and classic, but also they're just timeless. You just can't go wrong with them. Next house is Guerlain, of course. Guerlain, and one of the newer fragrance lines is Mon Guerlain, and I love that line. I think it's super classic. It will stand the test of time, and I just love the eau de parfum, the simple eau de parfum. It is super intense. I love that they've put lavender in a woman's fragrance like that, like a, you know, a star of this fragrance, and it's rich, it's vanillic, it's a lavender that is vanillic, and this is super feminine to me. It just smells extremely wearable and also classic, but also crowd pleasing. So I love that one. Another fragrance from Guerlain that I would recommend, and that one is a very classic fragrance, and it's Samsara. I love that one because it is very classic. When you apply it, it's a very strong fragrance, and a lot of Guerlain fragrances are very strong, but this one, be careful because yeah, you can really overspray this one. This has got loads of flowers in it, iris. When you look at the notes, you would think, oh, this is like a light fragrance, or this is a fragrance that maybe is slightly gourmand. But actually, it's a very powdery, earthy experience. It's not necessarily what you would think looking at the notes. So this one, I would say it's a bit of a fragrance that you have to experience. You have to go in, try it for yourself on the skin, but I promise you this is like one of the most classic fragrances you can get, and it is a bit intimidating. So if you want a confidence boosting, a bit intimidating fragrance, this one is a very good one for that. Another one from Guerlain, okay, we have to go for Shalimar. It's one of the most classic fragrances. I love Souffle, the Shalimar Souffle version, because it's a bit brighter, lighter. It's, I think, a much more of a modern interpretation of Shalimar, and I just love the new iris, millésime iris that they released. The iris version is absolutely insane. It's so good. It might be one of the favorite flankers of Shalimar I have ever smelled. It's that good. So if you can get hold of that one, I would say go for it. I mean, iris and vanilla Shalimar together, it's one of the most classic combinations you can get in a fragrance. And if you love a vanilla fragrance, this is amazing. Another fragrance brand that I think about for classic fragrances is of course Roja. Most of the fragrances are grown up, regal. I believe he was a royal perfumer as well to the Queen. He created some perfumes for her. Here in England, it's very, I would say, it's classical to a T, this brand, the whole decor, everything about it. And this line and this fragrance in particular, I would say it's very, very classic, very timeless. I love this Enigma Oud fragrance. They've got Enigma, just Enigma. That fragrance also, I think, is very classic, but they've also added oud to this classic Enigma fragrance, and to me it's even more classic with this oud, and it has got a bit more of the rebellious classic vibe. That's why I love it, because it's not as, you know, poised and proper like a Jane Austen sort of a book. With that oud in here, it's got a bit character, and I love it for that. It's beautifully sweet, it's honeyed flowers, but it's got this nice woody oud in there, and it makes the fragrance just so much more interesting and with character, as I would say. So I love this line. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of their fragrances. They're all very classic scent profiles. They're beautifully made, stunning fragrance oils. I love also Ti Amo from this line. It's more of a romantic fragrance. It's got cocoa in there. It's got white flowers. It's very sensual. It's supposed to be a very sensual, romantic sort of a fragrance, and it is, but not in the modern, typical way that, you know, they would put tons of sugary sweetness in there and tons of like really flowery petals in there. It's not that. It's done in a very classical way, that romantic sweetness. It's totally a different experience of a fragrance. Next fragrance that I think is super classic is Lancome Poème, and this fragrance I think I can't find at Lancome counters very often. They hide it sometimes at the back, and I love this scent. It's one of those yellow floral fragrances that is a bit tropical. It's a bit nostalgic. It's gorgeous still to this day. I know it's been released quite a while ago, but there's many like niche brands who make similar fragrances to Lancome Poème, and they bring back this scent DNA, and people love it. But it's actually like stemming from Lancome Poème, which is an absolutely amazing fragrance, and not many people wear this sort of DNA of a fragrance these days. So if you want a super classic designer fragrance, I also recommend Lancome Poème, especially for yellow floral lovers. Another brand that comes to mind is of course Goutal, and it's in the presentation very classic, sort of boudoir French. And this fragrance in particular, I wore it the other day. I was cleaning, out of all things, but I was cleaning, and then I fancied spraying something that I haven't worn in a while, and I was sprayed this, and I was like, this I have to put. And this whole video is basically because of the scent, because I wore it and I was like, I have to make a classic fragrance list because this smells super classic, but in this naughty way a little bit. So this is, I would say, like a Moulin Rouge sort of a fragrance. It's got this tiny bit of cigarette smoke. It's clean, but also a bit smoky and powdery, like, you know, those powder machines that, like, when you're watching the theater, they sometimes like put this thing, I don't know what it's called, like smoke machines that put just like this fog over the stage, and this has got a very particular smell. So this kind of reminds me of that smell in there as well. It's just full of atmosphere, it's classic, it's beautiful flowers as well. So this one is a bit more of a naughty classic fragrance, but man, it's so good, and I just love the bottle as well. Another fragrance that is very classic as well, and I don't see it talked about anymore as much, and it's Jour d'Hermes from Hermes. This fragrance is perfectly clean, white florals. It's so radiant as well, so uplifting. The bottle is just gorgeous. I know I keep saying bottles, but I do appreciate a good fragrance bottle, okay? This scent, I remember one of like my aunties used to wear when I was younger, and I fell in love with this scent, and I don't smell it. Like, I haven't smelled it forever on anybody. So this is a good one if you want to smell classic, if you want like a sort of that squeaky clean sort of a smell, but still very classic and elegant. This is a fragrance for you. It's absolutely stunning. Another fragrance that I would wholeheartedly recommend to you if you love a classic scent is Frederic Malle. The whole brand actually is quite of a, I would say, classic French perfumery example, but especially something like Carnal Flower. It's a beautiful representation of tuberose, and it's very heady, it's very strong. Do not underestimate this fragrance because it's super hyper strong. And if you want something sensual but also timeless and classic, then this will be your fragrance of choice. I also love Portrait of a Lady, a typical patchouli rose fragrance. So beautiful, so just spicy and French. It just smells so French. And also L'Eau d'Hiver. I love that one because it's very misty, watery, beautiful. It's almost like you're not wearing a fragrance, but you are, and it's one of those that just smells super niche and high quality, but it's not a very strong, overpowering fragrance. It's more of a delicate, timeless, like you want to be smelled, but you don't want to scream with your fragrance. So I love that one as well. And another brand that is just killing it with, like, the whole brand is again very French classic perfumery, is Serge Lutens. One of the most classical fragrances in their collection that I've smelled is Fleur d'Oranger, and this is classic to a T. This is something that Coco Chanel would wear. It's literally a French flower. It's heady, it's strong, it's feminine to a T. Like no guy would ever like dream of wearing this. And it makes a statement, smells supernatural, smells literally like you've walked through a garden. If you want something like that, then definitely like neroli, beautiful. Oh, this is beautiful. And another fragrance from Serge Lutens that is super classic, it's Chergui. This is more of this darker, earthier fragrance. I don't know if they would categorize it as a gourmand. I've heard people say this is a gourmand, but to me this is more of like an earthy gourmand. This is spicy, this is rich, this is almost like a ginger cake that you get at Christmas, at least in Poland where I used to live. There is like this richness to it. It's like this really syrupy gingerbread that is soaked, and there is this dark chocolate on top, and it's not obviously sugary. It's more of this really spicy cake, and this reminds me of that. It's very spicy, kind of Christmas spices and earthiness and slight bit of sweetness and dark chocolate. Is absolutely classic, especially for this sort of a season, and it's timeless. These two would be perfect, like day, night, and winter, fall, and this would be like a spring summer fragrance. They're just the perfect classical trio of a fragrance. Trio? Duo. Let me know what is a classic fragrance in your collection that you would say is like, you know, the core of your collection. Is classic, you will wear it forever. It's got this smell also. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll link all the fragrances down in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.